You're listening to WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, Singles Talk Radio channel, where we take a lighthearted and candid approach to discussions on the journey of relationship loss, divorce, parenting, being single, relationships building, dating, and yes, sex. Join our listeners and begin living your best life.
Hello there. Welcome to WGSN-DB Digital Broadcasting Going Solo Network. You're listening to the Business Showcase. I'm your host today, Cece Schatz, author, radio personality, and CEO of My Friends Connect. Hello, this is Cece with WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. And today we're going to move right forward into our show because we have a jam-packed show today. We're going to be featuring the Business Showcase and also Going Solo with Cece. We do have an author with us today, so we'll be also sharing that with our listeners who love the authors. But today we have with us Dean Tong, and Dean is an international noted author. He is a forensic trial consultant and an expert witness, concentrating in the areas of divorce, child custody, abuse, and sexual, physical, child abuse, domestic violence, parental alienation, sexual allegations, and divorce. Welcome to the show, Dean.
Cece, thanks for having me this morning.
Oh, it's great having you. I tell you what, you've been on Going Solo with Cece before, and I do appreciate you coming back, and I probably would have you back 1,000 times because you are so knowledgeable in such a very difficult and, may I say, sticky situation. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into doing this type of work?
Yeah, unfortunately, I got into my current situation, what I do for a living, which is helping lawyers and parents who've been falsely accused, mainly of child abuse, or mothers who've been falsely accused of coaching their kids to accuse dads of incest or something. By firsthand experience, I was arrested for allegedly molesting my own 3-year-old daughter back in 1985, over 30 years ago. And of course, all the charges were dropped, but it catapulted me into basically critiquing the system. This is a well-meaning, a well-intentioned system, child protection that is, but oftentimes misguided. And so we're not catching the bad guys, the guys that are actually hurting our children, such as Jessica Lunsford, that became Jessica's Law in Florida. She was raped and killed by a convicted child molester during the time when Jeb Bush was governor here. So we're not catching the bad guys. And of course, at the other end of the street, there are false allegations, not necessarily witch hunts, but mistakes that are made. Children make mistakes. Kids sometimes lie. Oftentimes kids get it wrong, and their memories are contaminated. So it's a system that needs a lot of help. And I just, as I told you this morning, I just got back from a criminal trial in Pensacola where I testified in front of a jury yesterday. And this is the norm for me. I go across America, and oftentimes I'm up against the police, I'm up against the DCF, I'm up against the child protection team, the CPT, I'm up against therapists. Obviously, I'm up against prosecutors. And, you know, they have a zeal to win, but so do I, you know, and I try to be that needle in a haystack looking for right, wrong, truth, and justice because I want to get it right. I want to, if the guy did this, what he's accused of, I want him to be prosecuted to the full extent allowed by law. But then if he didn't do it, obviously he should be vindicated. And in sex cases, you probably know, not just Florida, but nationally, if you take a plea bargain or you're convicted by a jury in a criminal case, you are going to get lifelong sex offender registration, which is interesting because you can kill somebody, you don't have to register as a murderer, but if you're a sex offender, you do have to register.
Yeah, and then you're tainted for life.
Well, yeah. And actually, they've done studies that show that guys that have been convicted who've been forced into plea bargains because they didn't have the resources to really have their due process justice staying in court, or they had an ineffective attorney or whatever, become much, much more violent when they go underground, when they have to register as a pedophile or a pervert or a sex offender. So it's obviously it's a reprehensible, heinous allegation when it happens, the accusation of child sexual assault. We don't want to ever think that someone would hurt a kid. The maxim or the mantra out there is children don't lie. Children are not mistaken about sexual abuse. They must be believed and protected at all costs. That's just a myth, and it's wrong. It's a nice sentiment to go by, but the fact is the studies by Dr. Cece, Dr. Loftus, over the last 20, 25 years, studies that have aired on Dateline in 2020, Pointing to the fact that more times than not, a kid is mistaken when a child points a finger at an adult male accused of sexual assault. And you don't need DNA or STDs or trauma to the genital area for this case to go forward, for a guy to do life in prison without the possibility of parole and lifelong sex offender registration. This is child victim hearsay. He said, she said, what a child said. That's all you need is the kid's word. So the entire case is litigated and predicated on the child's word. So hearsay, by definition, is an out-of-court statement made for the truth of the matter asserted. That's the legal definition. Normally, generally speaking, hearsay is not admissible. It's legally inadmissible. Not so when a woman takes out a restraining order, an injunction, because she's allegedly been abused, or a child reports to her mother or a teacher or authorities or Child Protective Services that she's been inappropriately touched. That's the exception to the hearsay rule. So that's why these cases go forward, not just in Florida, but all 50 states.
You know, when we talk about the subject, it just makes you just like, wow, because of the subject of a child being abused like that. It just takes your breath away. But we have to step back.
It does. Oh, yeah, you know, and it did me. It did me when I was 29 years old back in 1985. And I just couldn't believe what I was facing and what I was hearing. And so you don't want to ever think or believe something like that could even surface, but it does. We talked this morning about this Toby Willis and the Willis family. He had a TV show on TLC. He just got arrested in Kentucky this week for raping a girl, underage girl, and he's being extradited to Tennessee for criminal prosecution purposes. So this happens all the time. And it's, again, a situation where, like you said, you don't want to think it could happen, but people get emotionally charged because talking about kids, and we're talking about disgusting allegations. And if we make a mistake, maybe we should make it on the side of the kid. Well, that's okay, perhaps, in a family court situation or a juvenile court situation. But in a criminal case, obviously, we have a constitution here in the United States. Every state has its own constitution. We have a federal constitution. And the accused has a legal right to due process. So the accused has a fair and impartial legal right to a fair and impartial trial by a jury of his peers. And that's the way it is. You're supposed to be presumed innocent, not presumed guilty. But as my website, abuse-excuse.com, articulates, that's not the case in abuse situations. You're actually presumed guilty, and you have to prove a negative to prove your innocence.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize that. I really think that they don't. They just feel that it's the other way around, and it's huge when you're being accused of something and it's not the case. You know, we see it a lot within divorce, a parental alienation. They use a lot of that in order to back it up and try to separate families, and both men and women. And I'm seeing it more and more coming across. They're saying various different things that maybe are not true. And then because they want to protect the children, they go that avenue, and the other party is just taken back about it. Not only are they dealing with realms of trying to deal with divorce, but they're dealing with trying to defend themselves. So it's very, very difficult. Explain to us a little bit about what a forensic trial consultant is.
Yeah, so I basically am used oftentimes not to testify and give findings and opinions on the witness stand, although I did yesterday in a criminal case in Pensacola. I'm used oftentimes as an expert consultant or trial consultant to help attorneys strategize the case. That could include formulation of motions, case law, peer-reviewed scientific articles, helping with questions on depositions to impeach perhaps the child. In Florida, you may not know, but in Florida, we are allowed to take depositions of child victims, complaining child witnesses in Florida. No other state allows that. So it's very important that lawyers, attorneys, doing this stuff the right way. And as a guy who has a graduate degree in psychology and the law, as I do, with 30 years of experience, 20 professional, 10 personal, oftentimes lawyers will reach out to me for my help. Attorneys don't get this stuff in law school. Lawyers don't get courses or degrees in litigating or trying false child sex cases in law school. They get this with on-the-job experience. So if your audience goes to my website, again, abuse-excuse.com, you'll see I'm approaching 1 million hits. 1 million. That is unbelievable. It's really surreal, and it speaks to the gravity of this problem that one guy could achieve 1 million hits at his website in 20 years. My website's been up since 97. That's 50,000 hits a year over 20 years. That's a lot of traffic, and it speaks to the gravity of this problem. So basically, I'm necessary in helping attorneys apply proper science to proper law in court. That's what I do. So whether it's a shaken baby syndrome case, which may not be shaken baby, maybe it's osteogenesis imperfecta. There's another possible explanation for what's going on with the kid's injuries, or child sexual assault. Maybe the kid was raped or abused, but you got the wrong guy, mistaken identity. You know, you're pointing the finger at the wrong suspect. And you haven't done what's called source monitoring. You haven't vetted the hearsay. You haven't done an exhaustive, objective investigation. You know, the police usually point their finger at one suspect, put him in handcuffs for probable cause, give it to the DA or the state attorney's office, as it's called in Florida, and now you're going to have a criminal prosecution. But maybe the kid might have been abused, but you got the wrong guy. So I advocate the psychosexual testing for the accused to show that he doesn't have the propensity or the penchant to be the monster that he's being painted to be. And this is all published in my books, at my website. Clients, accused people, men and women, are not going to get this from attorneys. You can't expect your attorney to give you ideas or remedies or strategies that involve science and psychology, mental health, behavioral science, social science, and psychology. You can't expect that unless you hire a lawyer who's a JD, PhD, who's a lawyer and a psychologist. There are a few of those out there, but they are very few. So it's a very specialized area. Obviously, as we talked about, it's emotionally charged to the judge on the bench, to the jury who's determining the fate of the accused. You don't want to not believe a child who would point a finger at a male suspect. And obviously, sexual abuse usually is perpetrated by people who know the child. With that said, only 5% of the time are there medical findings of sexual child abuse. So 95% of the time, it's going to be like I articulated early in this interview, he said, she said, what a child said. All words, all hearsay. There's not going to be forensic CSI Miami DNA proof. There's not going to be any of that. You're just going to have hearsay. And of course, the hearsay has criteria in order for the jury to find the accused guilty or not guilty. The child's hearsay must be made spontaneously, contain reliability, and be trustworthy. There are 3 prongs to the test. So as an expert, I can give an opinion after I look at the DVD interview of the child victim at the Child Protection Team. I'm able to give an opinion on whether I believe the child did make an outcry or disclosure against the accused spontaneously, and it contains reliability and trustworthiness, or the child is a victim of taint, contamination, and adulteration because maybe the interviewer used improper interview methodology. She used suggestive leading questions, dolls, puppets, or drawings, cake, candy, or ice cream, whatever she might have used to goad or induce the child to implicate the accused. And I see this all the time. Unfortunately, I see this all the time. Again, well-meaning, well-intentioned people who are there, to basically get a disclosure from the kid, because they know if they get a disclosure during the interview, there's a sex crime detective watching that same interview in a side room. Bingo, that's going to lead to a criminal arrest of the accused. Right. So that's what's going on, and I'm a very, very busy guy, as my website indicates.
Hey, there's more and more of it. I tell you what, Dean, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about parental alienation, because some people don't understand what exactly that is. Sure. But of course, I'd like everybody to just grab a quick pen, and when you do, I would like for you to write down his website. Tell us your website again, Dean.
You can put my name in Google, or you can just put the abuse excuse if you don't remember the URL, but it's abuse-excuse.com.
Okay, that's great. So we'll be right back. This is Cece with Going Solo. You're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We have Dean Tong with us, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, Singles Talk Radio Channel, where we take a lighthearted and candid approach to discussions on the journey of relationship loss, divorce, parenting, being single, relationships building, dating, and yes, sex. Join our listeners and begin living your best life.
Welcome back. This is Cece with Going Solo Network, and you're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, and we're so pleased to have you with us. We are featuring the Author's Corner along with the Business Showcase and Going Solo with Cece. So we've got all of those parameters covered because we have a terrific guest with us today. His name is Dean Tong. He is internationally noted author. He's a forensic trial consultant, expert witness. He concentrates in the area of divorce, child custody, abuse accusations, sexual physical abuse, domestic violence, parental alienation, sexual allegations, and divorce. Welcome back, Dean. We're just so pleased to have you with us.
Thanks, Cece. It's great to be back. And I just wanted to mention, obviously for your audience, especially the issue of parental alienation. Parental alienation is a form of mental, psychological, or emotional child abuse where one parent is bad-mouthing or denigrating, vilifying, disparaging the other parent, oftentimes in front of the kid. And the child could actually repeat or parrot what the alienating parent is saying to the targeted parent. And judges are routinely inserting these, what I call anti-PA or anti-parental alienation admonishments in their court orders upon divorce, in divorce cases, not just in Florida, but nationally, that neither parent should discuss the case with the child, neither parent should talk bad about the other parent in front of the child, that the best parent is both parents, and that the other parent should foster and nurture the relationship of the child with the other parent. Oftentimes that doesn't happen. Divorce can turn ugly. It can turn into a vicious custody battle, War of the Roses, Kramer versus Kramer. And oftentimes things get said, kids witness or listen in by proxy, stuff that is being said, words, including expletives, and not good. So the effects of parental alienation on the children, and obviously in custody cases, not just, in Florida, but all 50 states, judges are required to rule in the best interest of the children. That's not an option. They have no option there, the judges. They have to do that. They have to rule in children's best interest. So as an expert, I have testified on the issue of parental alienation in court, and especially to the negative effects on the kids and how kids can basically be aligned with a targeting, or rather an alienated parent against a targeted parent. And especially when they have reached puberty, adolescents may not even want to see the targeted parent. And that requires, obviously, a reintegration therapist to be ordered by the court, or a parenting coordinator, as we have on the law books, Florida Statute 61.125 here in Florida. We have parenting coordinators who work these high-conflict divorces and custody battles that include parental alienation. So it's a real bad thing. When I see false child sex abuse allegation cases or physical child abuse allegation cases where I find one parent is wielding the child as a pawn, weapon, or tool, where that parent may have motive, method, opportunity to falsely accuse the targeted parent, using that child as ammunition to do so, that is a form of parental alienation. That's what that is. And this is mentioned in my books. And again, I in custody cases, when I'm hired by fathers especially, I tell them, but I'm hired by mothers too, that you have to put the needs of the child ahead of your own needs, that you can neither vilify nor denigrate the other parent, that you have to foster and nurture the relationship of the other parent with the child. You have to do that, even if it's a bitter pill to swallow, because the other parent may have committed adultery, leading to divorce, infidelity, whatever the case may be, leading to a dissolution of the marriage. You have to suck up your pride and put the child's needs ahead of your own. Very, very, very important.
That is so true. And I've seen it time and time again where this is happening. This is happening in the family, and because of my divorce support group. And so often the party will just be so overwhelmed with it. They end up stepping back, moving away from having contact with the children, having contact with the family, because they just can't seem to get this solved. And it's a shame. So I just think what you're doing, Dean, is just, I think really my own opinion is divorce needs to be changed. The whole parameter of how we look at things, I think the laws need to be reevaluated and redone. But until that time, people like yourself that are highly educated, very informed, very caring, because like you said many times, and I know you, what the most important thing is what's best for the child, what's in the interest of the child, what we can do to protect them and have them grow a healthy, good life. That's what you're all about. And so I just thank you so much for all that you do, because I know that it's heart-wrenching at times. I know that you really put yourself out there, both physically and personally, and also what you do professionally. And so, I just thank you for what you're doing, because it's not an easy task. It's not an easy task to look at some of this dirty stuff and open it up to try to see how can it be fixed, or does someone need to be punished for what they're doing, or is it not real? So you're really doing something that's so very needed. So I thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you, and you're welcome. But in Florida, we have mediation on the law books in divorce cases, where judges will order the parents to attempt mediation, attempt to settle their differences out of court without a trial. And obviously that saves money for the litigants, saves money and time for everybody. But oftentimes it can't be executed, and litigation ensues. So people should understand what parental alienation is. There's a great website. It's called divorcepoison.com, and that is owned by Dr. Richard Warshak. Warshak is a psychologist who's known me for about 25 years. He's out of Dallas, Texas. He wrote a book by the same title, Divorce Poison, back in 2008, and that book became a bestseller. So Warshak is arguably the leading expert in America on this psychological phenomenon called parental alienation. It's not in the DSM-5. The DSM-5 was our controlling Bible for mental health disorders. It was published back in 2013. So the word alienation you will not find in the DSM-5. That doesn't mean in a court case you can't get it before a judge or even a jury and get it admitted into evidence on a court record. There are 3 subtypes in the DSM-5. One is estrangement, another is child psychological abuse, and the other is parent-child relational disorder, where a lawyer or a psychologist who's testifying can get it in for a client in a case where alienation is going on. But the word alienation is not in the DSM-5, and the reason for that is politics. This has been a political time bomb, if you will, over the last 30 years since Dr. Richard Gardner, who was fairly close to me. Richard Gardner was the expert psychiatrist out of New Jersey who coined this theory, parental alienation, back in the early 80s. He passed away, I think, in 2003, and he has a controversial background, Dr. Gardner does. So with that, DSM-5 committee psychologists have been hesitant to publish alienation in the DSM, and that's why it doesn't exist.
It's a shame, because it really needs to be there, because you're seeing it more and more. And just really stop for a minute and look at this.
Yeah, and in my book, Elusive Innocence, I actually call it a fatherectomy. I call it a fatherectomy, where I'm not trying to be gender biased, but oftentimes moms will prevail in hotly contested custody battles over fathers. And if a mother is trying to extricate a father in a divorce case, in a custody case, so I call it a fatherectomy, where the father is trying to be eviscerated from the life of the child and vice versa. You could also call it a motherectomy, or you could call it a parentectomy. In any situation there, what you're saying is that one parent is trying to be ousted from the life of the kids and vice versa.
And it's really hard for that parent to hang on. Like I said, I've seen it, I felt it. Even in my own situation, and I've just made up my mind that is not happening, and too bad. so
right.
It's gotten better over the years, but you have, and I think someone like yourself who really tries to be fair and help the attorneys get through some of the stuff that's going through there, and it's really all to help children. It really is to all help the families And so it's very, very important to look at it. So I would highly suggest that you all try to get his books, Dean Tong's books. He has 3 books out: The Exclusive Innocence, Ashes to Ashes, Family to Dust, and Don't Blame Me, Daddy, Don't Blame Me. Definitely get those books. Now, you would have to go to the bookstore, one of the major bookstores, to purchase the book. You need to definitely go and get them. And I think it's worth purchasing. They're worth reading. The thing is as we're going through divorce, and if it's a sticky divorce, and you all out there that are listening, you know what I mean by that. If it's something that you're starting to have some difficulty with, you need to educate yourself as much as you possibly can. Listen to shows that are on Going Solo Network. Read great books out there from some terrific authors like Dean Tong. Get yourself educated. Know what your rights are the best you can. And that way you're supportive to your attorney that's trying to represent you. It's a good thing to be. Not that you know it all, because of course we don't, and that's not our profession to do that. But it also helps abetting some of the emotions that we feel as we're going through divorce. So definitely check out Dean Tong's website. It's abuse-excuse.com. As he said, people are really going to it, and a lot of information there. Something that's very well worth looking at. So I would highly recommend that. Any closing information you'd like to give the listeners out there, Dean?
Just for people to be very careful in this recession, because we don't know who's going to be elected here in the next couple of months, whether it's Clinton or Trump. We don't know which way the economy is going to turn and when it's going to turn back for the good. Be very, very careful on selection of your attorney. So in my book, Elusive Innocence, at my website, abuseexcuse.com, there is a section, How to Choose Your Attorney. I work with lawyers 24/7, 365. They are a different breed of people. With all due respect to them, they'll be quick to take your retainer check, but perhaps not so quick to really help you. So be very careful on your selection of counsel. Like anything else in life, not all are created equal.
And I'll tell you just a horror story. When I first got divorced, I hired an attorney who I had known for years, and gave me some really bad advice, totally, really, really bad advice. And when I did what I did, it totally turned my divorce case upside down. And for years, I was trying to recover from that. So you definitely want to, don't choose a friend. Choose someone that's going to represent you and it's going to meet your needs, and that's very, very important.
Experience, CC, is very important. You'd be surprised how many parents and grandparents I come in contact with who don't ask the right questions when they plunk down that $10,000 or $25,000 retainer check to an attorney. Yes, the attorney may be board certified. Yes, the attorney may be AV rated Martindale Hubbell. Yes, the attorney may be a super lawyer. None of that means anything unless the lawyer has experience. For example, in a child sex case, when's the last time the lawyer got a not guilty verdict by a jury? When's the last time the lawyer did cross-examination of the child witness on the witness stand? These seem like normal questions to ask, but you'd be surprised what people don't ask. And it's kind of ironic because a lawyer is quick to see my what's called CV, which is my professional resume. So they know everything about me, but I know nothing about them.
And again, like you were saying, it's not always what's on the paper, on the CV. It's what's your actual performance and what you've been exposed to. So, you could go to a divorce attorney who just started doing divorces. And so you want to be very careful with that. Yours is a sticky case. You want to make sure that you have somebody that has dealt with all of the issues that you're having a problem with.
When I'm on a case, I critique everybody, including the lawyer I'm working for. He or she may not like it. I don't care. It's necessary. With all due respect, I'm not here to go golfing, have drinks, and be friends. I'm here to do a job and get the client equity at law in court, whether it's a mother or a father. With that said, I have to babysit the work of the attorney. I have to micromanage the case in a little bit of a way. A lot of lawyers don't like that. They don't like someone looking over their shoulder. But, I'm a specialist. This is all I do. And like I said, my website's approaching 1 million hits. I probably have consulted on over 20,000 cases since 1995. And, basically 1,000 cases a year I will be consulted on, either by email, phone, text message, however a person needs to get a hold of me. I see a lot of And like I said, lawyers don't get this stuff in law school. There are no courses that they get. There's no degree that they get that specializes in this field. They're doing this one case at a time. For every case a lawyer gets, I may get 100, 200, 300. It's a very dynamic field. I am pumped scores of peer-reviewed scientific journal articles weekly by my colleagues, psychologists across America. It's an incredibly dynamic field. And there's no way any attorney can keep up with that. As an expert, I have to keep up with that. I have to keep up with the body of science that controls this issue. And you'd be surprised when I get involved in a case what lawyers don't know. So I'm looking for errors of commission, what lawyers do wrong, errors of omission, what lawyers don't do at all.
Oh, that's great. That's absolutely great. Well, listen, we're going to have to close the show, but I just want to make sure that everyone knows we have a guest on today who is Dean Tong. It's Tong, and his website is abuse-excuse.com. Please definitely contact him if you are looking for someone to help you get through a very difficult situation in your divorce, or if you have any kind of sexual allegations or problems, any kind of domestic violence. He's an expert who knows what he's doing, and he can help you and work back with your attorney to be able to get the answers, get things out there, get the information out there. Dean, do you want to leave also your phone number?
813-417-5362. My numbers are online. They're at my website. I'm on Wikipedia, so there's a lot of contact information out there on me. And been here in Tampa Bay, Florida now for some time, so contact information hasn't changed on me.
And Google his name, Dean Tong, and everything will come up for you if you're trying to reach. If you have this type of situation that you need this expert working with you and helping you get through, he's definitely there for you. So, and if you're
the last thing I wanted to mention, CC, is money, because a lot of people probably wonder if they can afford to hire me. In cases of criminal cases where someone's been arrested, or juvenile court cases where somebody may lose their parental rights to a child, that litigant, that parent, can get my services for free through the state. So I'm recognized as an expert with what's called the Judicial Administrative Commission, which is the JAC, and the website for that is justiceadmin.org in Tallahassee. And I've been with the JAC for 6 years in Florida. So there's a way to get me on board. If you have no money, the judge will consider ordering the state to pay my fees as an expert.
Wow, that's great information. Thank you for sharing that, Dean. See, there again, you're trying to make a difference. You're really trying to help people that are in need. It's not so much about the dollar. It's not so much about, it's really finding who's right, and trying to get the right answers and helping families be able to move through probably one of the most difficult times in their life. I appreciate it. Well, thank you very much for being on the show.
Cece, thank you again for having me back.
You're welcome. Well, you are listening to Dean Tong. He is an international noted author. He's a forensic trial consultant, expert witness, concentrating in the areas of divorce, child custody, abuse, accusations. He's physical abuse, domestic violence, parental alienation, sexual allegations, and divorce. You've got this kind of problem, don't hesitate. Contact him. Go to his website. It's abuse-excuse.com. All his information is on there, a wealth of information for you. Don't sit by and let things happen to you. You can make a difference. You can change your life, so we appreciate it. Well, this is CC with Going Solo. You are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This is the Author's Corner, Meet the Author, and also Business Showcase. So we are so glad and excited to have Dean Tong on the show with us today. So we hope you'll come back and listen to us each and every time. Bye for now.
Thank you.